It's the Boris Dirk podcast, and we are back with our official playoff preview. We are thrilled to be joined today once again by Sean Davis. You may know him from Twitter, from YouTube. Puts out a ton of NBA content, a lot of Lakers content, but NBA content in general. Just does a great job with his YouTube channel and podcasts and tweets. So he's joining us for the second time. And as always, my co-host Drew is here with me. Sean, how you doing?
Doing good, fellas. Glad to be back on. Had a ton of fun the first time around, and happy to be back on to preview the playoffs with you guys.
All right, Drew.
To be clear, Sean, you can't. We don't want any reporters recording anything from this meeting. What's said in the Zoom room stays in the Zoom room. Defense wins championships.
Oh my god, that was so bad. I don't know why. It's the comparison I made was like it's almost like being in high school, and excuse me for using a high school comparison. I like work with high schoolers all day, but it's almost like being in high school and you get beat up really, really bad in a fight, and then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks go by, and everybody's starting to forget about it, and then you just keep running around telling everybody, "Oh, remember when I got beat up? And this is why I got beat up. I wasn't really." We stopped caring a week ago. Why are you still talking about it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Dallas somehow still alive, somehow still kicking. They had a very spirited effort against the Kings last night. Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson reaching into the Wayback Machine, but I don't think any of us see them going super far. But the idea for today is to go through the playoff bracket, preview all the first round series, and then just give predictions for where we think it's going from there. So West is definitely way more interesting. So we're going to start in the West, and we'll start with a bit of an appetizer, just go top to bottom. OKC against either Memphis or Dallas. Sean, do you see either of those teams getting more than a game off of OKC?
No, I think it's OKC in five. If it's OKC Dallas, I think it'll be a sweep, but it'll be an annoying sweep. Like Dallas just doesn't have enough offensive firepower at the end of the day, in my opinion. But their size, their physicality, and their playoff defense, I think, can give OKC some trouble, similarly to what it did last year, actually. But they just don't have a reliable 1A playoff engine. AD is great, but without Braun or another facilitator, I think AD is kind of he's kind of lined up to have a bad postseason series, I think. But it'll be an annoying series. I think they beat Memphis at 5. I think the way Memphis plays, their pace, their offensive options, and their versatility they have offensively can be good enough to steal one game, but OKC would just ultimately overwhelm them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
OKC's dominance this year has been so comprehensive. Like I just saw this cool graphic on minutes for every team in the league, up by 20, down by 20, and everything in between. And OKC has been down by 20 so much less than everyone else, up by 20 so much. It's just been dominance across the board for that team. And so there just isn't an 8 seed between Dallas or Memphis, who I think is really going to make them sweat.
Yeah, I'd probably pick a sweep in either series. OKC I feel like we did this with Boston last year where all the numbers were saying this is a historically great team. They're the favorite. They're going to win the title. And yet a lot of people I think were hesitant to buy in because of previous playoff failures. And by all the metrics, point differential, net rating, all that, OKC best point differential ever, second best net rating ever, and every other team around them won the title in the year that they posted those numbers. I'm just going to believe that this is a historically great team from what all the numbers are telling me, and historically great teams sweep underwhelming first conference opponents. So 4 or 5 games, I'd probably lean 4, but either way, it's not going to be a long series.
And don't look at too many numbers, man. 68 with not much Chet this year. I mean, 68 is wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We don't need to spend too much time on that one. Every other series in the Western Conference is appointment television and a doozy. Warriors, Rockets. Warriors, they had their sort of falling into the play-in with their late season fumbles against the Spurs and then losing to the Clippers. They handle business to get the Rockets in round 1. Sean, what's your lean in this series?
This is the series I've had the toughest time kind of making my ultimate prediction for. It's such a weird clash of styles. Not weird, such a fun clash of styles. You have Houston that they're going to try to beat you with their overwhelming amount of just size, speed, and athleticism. And then make things super super just like muddy, just make you get out of the mud type of basketball. They'll and honestly like half the time their best offense is going to be like missing intentionally, and then just being the team that rebounds like 36% of their offense of their missed shots. And then when they go double big, they like lineups with Adams and Sengun have like a 51% offensive rebounding percentage, which is just insane. I lean Golden State in seven. I hate the pick. I honestly don't like it if I picked Houston in seven either. I think I'm the most confident out of any series that this is the one to go seven. For a couple of different reasons, but I think I lean Golden State in seven. One, because this feels like a series where Draymond Green is just going to like dominate in, and you get, I think a lot of people, when they think of Draymond Green legacy defensive series, the immediate one is 2017 against Portland in round one. That's like the first one I think everybody goes to. It wouldn't surprise me necessarily if Draymond just has another series on that caliber this year against Houston, where his switchability, his unreal and generational, honestly, like just defensive IQ. Houston's going to deploy basically like two non-shooters almost at all times on the floor, which just allows him to roam and be the best free safety in the league. And then honestly, the second factor in me picking Golden State in seven is just Steph and Jimmy are still too reliable, and it's almost benefit of the doubt. Honestly, I'm just gonna trust them to in a 88 game with 3 minutes left, that 4 out of 7 times that Steph and Jimmy as a duo is able to just like get it out of the mud and just find a way to win. Specifically Jimmy. I wouldn't be surprised if Steph has a less effective series. Not 3 points on 1 for 10 shooting, less effective, but you get the point. Jimmy, I think if Jimmy's like locked in an ultra aggressive, I think Jimmy could still have a really good series because of his downhill ability and ability to put opposing teams in foul trouble. And the lack of like late game scoring, I think, from Houston, I think also kind of leads me to say Golden State. And sorry to keep rambling, but if Houston wins, I think this is a 6-game series, even though that would be in Golden State. It's hard. It's hard to say Steph and Jimmy lose to the Rockets. A little bit different, spoiler, a little bit different than like Bron losing game 7 to Shea. It's different. We're talking about Steph and Jimmy losing a game 7 to Jalen Green and Alfred Sengun. It's hard to see that happening, even though that's on the road. So I'm going to go Warriors in 7.
Drew?
I hear you on the Draymond stuff, but Şengün is a motherfucker. Turkish Delight can handle a couple weeks of psychological warfare with Draymond. But Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, these guys have all felt the pressure of the deep waters. And so I don't blame you for giving them the benefit of the doubt. And just the combined IQ of this closing Golden State lineup has been evident the last few weeks. And even Pods, with his inexperience, I think is super high Q and will be able to figure out playoff puzzles quicker than you might think. But I've still got Rockets in 7. I think the Warriors kind of need Kuminga in this matchup just to match up with Houston's athleticism on the wings. But for whatever reason, Kuminga's receiving the Jason Tatum Paris treatment. And I think it'd be hard to blame Kuminga if his confidence is shot right now. Still love what I've seen from Moody, but I just think Kuminga's tools are too important to the Warriors. And so I don't agree with completely benching him the way that Kerr has opted to do the last couple of games. Amen Thompson was engineered in a lab to bother Steph Curry. We saw it recently. But overall, I just think this is the quintessential experience versus athleticism series. And I think Houston has just enough poise in late game half-court offense with Şengün and Van Vliet, and just enough audacity trickling down from Udoka and Dylan Brooks to the young guys to overcome that experience gap. But Rockets in 7, I think it's going to be a bloodfest.
Yeah. We all agree on 7. I went back and forth a lot on this one. Also found it kind of hard to pick. The pro Rockets arguments are what you guys sort of outlined with the number of bodies they have to throw at Steph and Jimmy between Thompson, Dylan Brooks. Fred Van Vliet's a pretty good Steph defender as well and has experience going against him on big stages from the finals in 2019. Tari Eason, list goes on. Even Jabari Smith can like switch out onto any of them and sort of move his feet effectively. And they do have that size advantage that I think should, or if it doesn't propel them to win the glass battle, they're screwed. But they should win the glass battle by a decent margin. But in looking into sort of more of the like four factors type stuff on NBA.com, Warriors top 10 in keeping their opponents off the offensive boards, which is kind of surprising since they're an undersized team, but everyone on their team scraps. Pods is a great rebounder for a guard. Draymond is a great rebounder for his size. Jimmy contributes on the glass. Even Steph contributes on the glass. So if the Rockets can't like dominate the offensive glass battle, I think they're going to be playing from such a deficit when it comes to half court offense. So I lean Warriors for that reason. And then the Warriors kind of struggle with turnovers sometimes, but Houston also doesn't force a ton of turnovers, surprisingly, for how disruptive some of their guys are. Like they're kind of middle of the pack in forcing turnovers. And then since trading for Jimmy, the Warriors draw a crap ton of fouls, and the Rockets do foul a lot. They're like 19th in giving up free throws per game. So all of those, the like, I'm not positive they're going to dominate the rebounding battle as much as might be expected. And then the fouling, I don't think they can get enough possessions from turnovers and rebounds to make up for just like the shot making gap that there's going to be between the two teams. And then, yeah, if it gets to critical game seven, I'm leaning Steph and Jimmy because they've been there before, they've done it before. And yeah, I'm not going to put my fate in the shot making hands of the Houston Rockets perimeter guys. So I lean Warriors in seven, but agree, or I'm picking Warriors in seven. I won't say I lean because that's a little soft, but I think it's going to be a long series, an ugly series where like Houston maybe blows them out in like a game five or something. But the Warriors win the close ones and ultimately win game seven.
Golden State starting unit of Steph, Pods, Moody, Jimmy, and Draymond have a 103 defensive rating. They're plus basically 18, and they have a opposing turnover percentage of almost 20%, while also defending without fouling, while also keeping the opposing team off the offensive glass. So yeah, I lean Golden State. I think this will be a really good series. This is probably my most anticipated first round series because of the sicko in me. But yeah, I'm gonna go Warriors in seven.
Yeah.
Are the Warriors favored? Not a gambling man, but I haven't checked the books.
They opened as like minus 200 favorites.
Wow.
I don't know if that's shifted in either direction, but that's how it opened.
I haven't checked.
All right, we'll move on to the next series. Timberwolves Lakers. Maybe the team I'm most excited to see in a playoff atmosphere is this Luka LeBron monster in front of a rejuvenated Lakers crowd that suddenly believes that their team is a championship contender again, which I fully believe with them that it is. Sean, how you feeling about the hometown Lakers versus the Wolves?
I have Lakers in 5 or 6. I think like this is why like watching basketball is so important, and I'm about to like completely like make my own pick look like it's an idiotic pick. But Anthony Edwards is obviously really, really awesome. But I'm working on a film breakdown previewing the series, and like while watching, I'm like, dog, he's like insane. I texted Tyler, our hoop venue, while I was like watching. I'm like, dog, he's insane. And Tyler just responded by saying, yeah, he's a hooper. And another take I've kind of gone off recently, and again, excuse my hyperbole or me just being a little bit, exaggerative. But if Anthony Edwards with the pull-up three-point shooting leap he's taken this season, and flat out just being like the second best shooter in the league, with the post All-Star break 2-point scoring leap he's taken from being a 46% 2-point scorer in the first half of the season pre All-Star break and like a 59% rim finisher to 59% 2-point score and 71% rim score. If he has those two things combined with the fact that like last year in the playoffs he was like almost a 50% mid-range scorer as well, he's like one of the 5 best playoff scorers ever. And not playoff offensive players ever, because there's still obviously gaps in the decision making and the playmaking and just passing ability in general, and be able to like pick his spots in that regard in terms of reading defenses. But in terms of flat out scoring ability, he would be top 5 ever because, in my opinion, there's just nothing you can do because one of the big Lakers strategies in this series is going to be them living with a lot of these switches and just zoning up away from the ball and basically saying, Ant, look, we're not going to give you the pull-up three. We're not going to let you just get blow-by touches to the rim because you're going to have to see several gap defenders to even get there. And we're going to hope that you're able, once you do get there, just kick the ball out and you scramble and rotate. So that's going to count on Ant to shoot the pull-up midi, shoot the floater, and get creative. And that's where, like I said, if he's what he was at last year in the mid-range, then and he's been like a 43 or so percent mid-range scorer since the All-Star break as well. So, like, at that point, he's just a scheme-proof scorer, and you basically double him and get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
But I still lean Lakers in 5 or 6. There's a lot of disadvantages I think the Lakers immediately put Minnesota into, and just in terms of how LA spaces the floor, and the fact that Minnesota's not have a good Luka defender. I'm tired of people telling me Jay McDaniels is a good Luka defender. That is not the case.
Yeah.
I don't like Jaden as a LeBron defender either, which means I actually would think the best option for Jaden ideally is like Austin, and you just eliminate Austin completely. But now, okay, that's cool. The Lakers, from their perspective, it will be, okay, cool, we just won't go to Austin. And you can't cheat off of Austin because he's a 40% catch-and-shoot threat. So, and then I think Rudy is a little underrated in the sense of I think he's fine, and he's fine in switching situations. He just got cooked by the best on-ball player in the league last season.
Yeah.
In the end of game 2 in a situation that he shouldn't have switched in the first place. The problem with Rudy in this series is going to be when the Lakers go smaller and they space the floor out. Who's Rudy guarding, and can he be able to laterally recover and get back out and contest on the shot? And if he can't, then it's either we're playing your best defensive player and most impactful rim protector off the floor, or you're forced to cheat over and stay home to the shooter, and now Luka, Bron, and et cetera just get blow-by opportunities at the rim. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of problems Minnesota creates because Minnesota can also equally just space the floor and, cause the Lakers to be in rotation a little bit too much as well, because the Timberwolves can run lineups, so they have 5 or 4 elite shooting threats, and then Randall is a mismatch hunter. But really it just boils down to, I think every game in the series will be close. It boils down to if it's 100-100 with 4 minutes left in a close game, the Lakers are winning that series, like, pretty convincingly. The Timberwolves' clutch offense is just abysmal. They would have the worst clutch worst clutch offense based off true shooting percentage, I think, since the All-Star break. I think that's right. Mm-hmm. And the Lakers have one of the better ones if we're going off of playoff offenses. So I have Lakers in 5 or 6.
Yeah, and if I'm JJ Redick, I might even coaches never make that starting lineup change at the beginning of the series, but that 5-out lineup is just going to be so difficult for the Wolves to guard compared to when they have Jackson Hayes on the court, that I might even just start that lineup in game 1. He's probably not going to. They're going to go with their normal lineup, and then probably that's what they're going to close with. But I just have such a hard time seeing how the Timberwolves are going to hang with that. And do you think for the Lakers on defense, if they start that normal lineup with Rui at the 4 and Hayes at the 5, or do you think they would start Dorian Finney-Smith instead of Rui to be able to match up with Ant, or do you think they start with Rui and then just sort of see how it goes off the bat?
I think they still stick with Rui. I think they showed in the most recent game against the Timberwolves. Not a lot you could take away because Randall and Gobert didn't play in that game, but I think they trust Rui at least a little bit with Ant, and based on how they play defense anyway, it's gonna be more of a team effort against Ant. So I think Rui will see, if we're just going with the starters, I think Rui will see a lot of Ant. I think Austin will see a lot of Ant. Luka will see some Ant too, only because they're gonna try to switch on Luka, and Luka will switch on to Luka. I mean, Luka will switch on to Luka. Luka will switch on to Ant and just funnel him into the gap defenders anyway. So I think they're gonna stick with their regular starting 5. And if they did somehow make a lineup adjustment, it would be them just starting small. But I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Drew, where's your head out in this one?
I think the Wolves really need to avoid trying to match the Lakers matchup sizing decisions. And I think Bryce Simon put it really well on the Game Theory pod, where he said they're going to try to play Rudy out of the series, and you need to find ways to play Rudy into the series, rebounding, putting a lid on the rim. I just think if you try to play small with the Lakers, you're just going to lose the math game. the Ant shooting this year has been massive with all the rim pressure he already established. Like I'm super interested to see not only in these playoffs, but in the next year or two, like how real that high volume 3-point shooting is because he's been a decent 3-point shooter since he entered the league, but this volume and this consistency has just been like, top three in the league, I think. So, according to dunks and threes, like defensive EPM, it's been a down year defensively for Jaden McDaniels. He's still really good, but I think even peak defense, Jaden McDaniels, like Sean said, was just not ideal for Luka. Not enough weight, not enough girth. And so it makes you wonder, like, who is the best option to guard Luka, which is always a nightmare of a question. But for Minnesota, it's probably Ant, which is just going to really tire on it. Anthony Edwards over the course of a series.
Yep.
The Wolves ended the season on a 9-2 run. They've been rolling and Julius Randle's been really good of late, but I'm even more comfortable trapping Anthony Edwards this year than I was last year when they don't have Cat as, their high volume pressure release valve. So I don't think this series will be a breeze for the Lakers. I've got Lakers in 6, but it's pretty simple for me. We're all taking Luka over Ant in a playoff series. And I'm taking the Lakers' third option, Austin Reeves, over Julius Randle or whoever might show up for the Wolves on a night-to-night basis. So I think Julius Randle is going to look at these no big Lakers lineups and think it's his time to shine. And I bet JJ Redick is just more than okay with that.
Yeah. And I mean, Luka in the Western Conference Finals against the Wolves last year, against what I think was probably a better Wolves team, lit them up 32, 10, and 8 on 47, 43, 85 shooting splits. Like, and I mean, playoff Luka, he's prone to putting, or I guess he always puts up those kind of numbers, but that was a particular series where the other team just felt totally powerless. And we saw as the series went on that Ant, I can't remember, I think he switched on to Kyrie to be the primary defender on Kyrie, and that really, especially coming off that Nuggets series, took away a ton from his reserves on the offensive end. So if he's going to be guarding Luka every game as like the primary defender and being relied on to honestly score like close to 40 a night, I think, because if I'm the Lakers, I'd probably go with the strategy of like stay home on the shooters. Don't let Naz Reid get going. Don't let, McDaniels get confidence. Conley, DiVincenzo, like they have a lot of shooters. Stay home on those guys. Let Ant try to score 40 against, Finney Smith, Rui, and all your zoning up behind it without getting too far off the shooters, and like live with the result. Because I mean, if Ant can do that and guard Luka on the other end and pull out the win over the course of a 7-game series, then all right, congratulations, you're one of the best players of all time. And he might end up being one of the best players of all time. He's certainly on that trajectory, but that's a lot to ask, especially when Luka's going to handle the playmaking. LeBron can just kind of chill from a scoring standpoint for the first 3 quarters, and then just like attack as the closer in the fourth quarter, especially that beginning stint when Luka sits. And it's just such an offensive buzzsaw to overcome. So I agree. Lakers in 5, Timberwolves, Direwolves, Lakers in 5. And
I'm ready to go out on a limb, on a
yeah,
recency bias limb, and say this is the best West round 1 of my lifetime. Like
I think so.
We haven't even gotten to Clips Nuggets, and like
Oh,
we just
wait.
talked
You were
about
saying West, like Western Conference round 1. I don't
yeah.
know why I interpret that as this being the best playoff series in the Western Conference round 1 of your life. I'm like, wait, what?
No, just like 3 must-watch series where I don't blame anyone for having a particular favorite outside of the 1-8 in the West. It's just, this is good television.
Yeah. And like we'll see what Julius Randle has as a Knicks fan. I'm wearing my Brunson jersey today.
I could have swore that was the Clippers jersey.
Nope. It looks kind of more red on the camera, but yeah, it's the orange and blue. As a Knicks fan, I've seen the Julius Randle playoff experience, and I do think he should probably get a little bit more grace for how injured he was in a couple of those playoff runs. But even the ones where he wasn't injured, it's just like the stuff that works in the regular season for him just doesn't work in the playoffs when guys are a little bit more locked in. He's not handling the double teams as well. He's settling for tough fadeaways. And yeah, he's just such an inefficient player in his history as a playoff player. And teams are going to dare him to make threes in a way that, and he's not going to be able to make them in the way that Cat was able to last year for that team. Maybe they end up closing with like the Naz Reid, Rudy front court instead, because that's probably their best look with Ant and DiVincenzo, and then whoever has it going, like McDaniels. That's probably the lineup I would go down with if I was the Timberwolves. But I think the Lakers have too much offensive firepower, and even if they take out Reeves, as you said, like okay, you have Luka and LeBron. That's enough.
I can already see it. Randall doesn't get a call he wants, and LeBron's off to the races. Luka touchdown pass, Lakers dunk, Wolves timeout. Emotionally broken. Lakers and I got 6. 5 is aggressive, but I respect it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. By the way, I think Ant has a monster series. So like, I'm saying Lakers in 5, but I think Ant just legitimately like goes off. I think players that have easy tendencies to pick up on just don't really sound like a good matchup in a series against LeBron or against like a LeBron or a Draymond or like a Chris Paul or like any team with these like supercomputers that just doesn't sound right. Because Randall, in terms of his mismatch hunting and the post-ups that he likes to go to, it's very predictable based off what side of the floor he's on, what he's going to go to. Left side of the floor, he's going to either try to go drop step, finish with his left, or it's going to be 2 bangs max into a fadeaway in the middle of the floor. Like and just switch down the right side. So, Lakers in 5.
All right. Last Western Conference series, in my opinion, the toughest series to pick. Nuggets Clippers, the 4-5. Sean, how you feeling for this one?
I have Clippers in 6, and this is very easy.
All right.
One, Jokic is ridiculous. By the way, Denver is an awful matchup. Like if we're just going starting 5 for starting 5. Okay, question: who's Christian Brown guarding?
Harden.
Okay, that's the easy one. Cool. Jokic, we're just gonna assume he's guarding Zubac, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So who's guarding Kawhi? Who's guarding Norman Powell?
Yep. Gordon's guarding Kawhi, and then Norman Powell.
Welcome to the bright lights, Peyton Watson.
Okay, and I actually don't mind that idea for like late game stuff. And if you want to go defense lineups, like basically Jokic is such an insane offensive engine. You give him 4 defensive players, you're gonna have an above average offense. That's kind of how Jokic works. But the majority of the time, you're gonna be seeing these starting 5 looks. And okay, cool. We're gonna put Aaron Gordon on Kawhi. We are going to spam 1-5 pick and roll with off ball action with Norman Powell. And there is nothing Denver could do about it. Because if you play deep drop, Harden's just going to just completely put Christian Brown in jail. And, I mean, okay, well then are we playing drop with Jokic? If you play drop with Jokic, that's easily where Jokic is at his worst defensively. So we're now talking about, okay, cool, let's put 2 on the ball. Okay, Zubac, if the low man is MPJ, who's guarding Dunn, or if it's Jamal, it's even worse. Then, okay, Zubac is going to catch it, and he's just going to go easy hook shot over the left shoulder, and that's money, and there's nothing Denver can do about that. Or he's going to buy Norman Powell on the off-ball action. There's just more answers to what Denver wants to do from the Clipper side of things compared to vice versa. Zubac is historically over the past few years one of the better Jokic options in terms of one-on-one defense. Now, Jokic per 75 possessions averages like 27 points in matchups against Zubac, but it's on -5 true shooting, into -5 like relative true shooting, and then it's like on 5 turnovers per 75 possessions or something like that. So I don't think they have a real option for Kawhi, because I actually think the best option is you let Aaron Gordon play free safety and be some semblance of weak side rim protection as opposed to him being your primary Kawhi stopper, at least for the first 3 quarters. And maybe in the 4 if I get it. But, I mean, hey, that's probably you go Payne Watson or something like that. So I just don't like Denver's options. I think L.A. presents an immediate adjustment for Denver, and also the non-Jokic is going to have to play every single minute, because they are going to lose the non-Jokic minutes by a lot. So I got Clippers in 6. Really interesting series. Could be fun. The chess match with T. Lue and David Adelman, but I'm going Clippers in 6 pretty confidently, actually.
All right, Drew.
Dude, get Sean Davis on a broadcast desk. That was awesome. I'm going 7 out of respect for Clips in 7 out of respect for the second best single player peak of my lifetime, Nikola Jokic. And the first note I wrote up when I was thinking about this series was it's 8 deep versus 5.5 deep, and 5.5 might be optimistic.
I'm
So
about to say
yeah, I'm not feeling good
five and
about
three
Russ.
quarters. Everybody like gets a
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah, I haven't been feeling good about Russ, and Peyton Watson is a fun hustle player who's offered them some fun secondary rim protection and wing defense, but still just might not have enough offensively to, do much for you overall in the aggregate. You've got a grandmaster chess player in Ty Lue versus David Adelman, who took over a week ago. Shout out Jesuit High School in Beaverton, Oregon, alma mater of our beloved listener, Dylan Johnson. You've got three guys on the Clippers who can make Jamal Murray's life a little bit harder. And Chris Dunn, Kawhi, Derek Jones Jr. even, who's had another sneaky great role player season. And the Nuggets they just can't play five guys. So when Russ or Peyton Watson comes in, you can leave those guys on the perimeter, shrink the floor, throw multiple bodies at Jokic if you want to, when you've got him in certain spots. Obviously, trapping Jokic isn't always a smart decision, but there are moments, you pick your spots there. And I don't know, maybe early, Jokic hasn't been in rhythm from three for a while now. Maybe you dare him to launch and see what happens, since it keeps him from getting you in rotation and activating his teammates. But any way you slice it, yeah, I think this is the Clippers series, and it is just a crazy feather in Jokic's cap if he can find a way to overcome the seismic differences in just depth and strategic advantage.
Yeah, I hear that. Um, but my heart pulls me, especially in the first round. I think if this was a second round series, I would lean heavily towards the Clippers because, as we said, the Nuggets only have 5 players. But since it's a first round series, I think that will matter less, where you can run these guys into the ground a little bit more. I don't feel good about the Nuggets the deeper they go into the playoffs for that reason. But in the first round, I think in big moments, I do like Aaron Gordon as a Kawhi defender, just in isolation situations. Like, he's held up pretty well in those contexts, and like if if the matchups make it so that you're going much more heavily towards Harden and away from Kawhi, yes, the Nuggets don't have a great way to defend that, but maybe that's not the worst thing in the world for the Clippers to be going away from Kawhi in those instances. Zoo's definitely going to provide some resistance against Jokic. And we haven't mentioned yet, I'm going to argue against myself, that the Clippers have a lot of good bodies to throw at Jamal Murray to really mess with him, between Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. But having said all that, Jokic has won 10 of the last 15 matchups with the Clippers, and to a degree has kind of owned them since that bubble comeback in 2020. Yes, this is a different Clippers team, but there is a lot of the same sort of personnel and DNA on the roster. Though he has been held to sort of modest efficiency of like 28, 13, and 8 on 50% shooting, which for him is like, below par. But Jamal has played well against the Clippers all year, despite their bevy of defenders to throw at him. And a lot of those games were early in the season, so pre-Kawhi, but still Dunn, still Derek Jones, and Jamal was scoring like in the 20s on good efficiency in all those cases. And yeah, the Nuggets have 5 players I trust. I'm fully transparent about that. I don't trust Russell Westbrook. I don't trust Peyton Watson to play offense. I don't trust Strother or a lot of their other Pickett to play defense very much, but I think they can have just enough to get it to a game 7. And in a game 7, I'm going to trust Jokic, even though Kawhi's been there and done that as well. So this one for me was the hardest to pick, and maybe I'm leaning too much heart and sort of like not wanting to bet against the best in the world in this one. Plus, there's a lingering piece of my mind that's like, we've seen these Clippers first round series before where they look great in the first 2 games and then Kawhi gets hurt. And I hate saying that, but like it has to be thrown out there as a variable. So all that being said, I trust Jokic to pull it out at home in a game 7. I lean Nuggets in 7.
I think your argument about the further this goes, like playoff wise, in terms of round, I think I view that completely differently. I think if Denver does get out of this series, then I think Denver makes it to the conference finals. Because then that means if they are able to beat the Clippers, that means, oh, okay, cool. Like they figured something out. They learned how to play defense again, and they could potentially beat the Thunder.
Wow.
Whereas if they don't, and I actually didn't like process that will be their second round, their second round matchup. So I'm not gonna be as bold and say they will make it, but I'm saying that they could. Like I think the further they go, the more telling that is of how good they're playing. Whereas I think if they're gonna lose definitively, I think it would be here. I think it would be here to the Clippers.
One other tiny little nugget on the Nuggets Clippers series, which I only put in as an Easter egg for listeners and really shouldn't even be mentioned, is, and if this is happening, it probably means the series is going very poorly for the Nuggets. Do not be surprised if they reach deep into the bench for Spencer Jones in this series. I don't know if they converted him from a two-way contract to a standard, but if they need athletic bodies, he might get on the court. Just wanted to mention that.
That's just insane Stanford bias, and you made me want to say Clippers in 5 or 6, but I'm sticking with 7.
It's all right. 5-man rotation. Okay.
48 minutes for everybody.
Yeah, literally. It's the Tibbs coaching tree.
Malone to New York. Just make the swap real quick.
Yeah. We can quickly go through the rest of the West playoff bracket. Sean, you had OKC in 4 or 5, who would go against the Clippers. Who would you have in that hypothetical matchup?
I have Thunder in 6. I have Thunder in 6. I think this would be a really fun series to test them and see where they're at. But ultimately, I think they have the personnel to really, really bother Harden and at least make Kawhi have to earn some of the stuff he's going to get, where I honestly don't really see anybody that scares me in terms of like being a Shea stopper. And then I also think that I think the Thunder just have the tactical advantage in that series. I'm going Thunder in 6.
Yeah, Drew, you have the same matchup, so
Same matchup and same number of games.
yeah, I have Thunder in 6 over Nuggets as well. So yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on that one. And then for Lakers Warriors, Sean, that's a tasty hypothetical matchup, but which way would you lean?
I go Lakers in 7.
Okay. Yeah, I feel 6 for that matchup, but I could very easily see it going 7. Like, and it would be just two teams, no centers allowed, small ball only. And yeah, we saw that last matchup between the Warriors and Lakers, and where Pods went like 8 for 10 from 3, and
You're making
yeah.
me want to say Lakers in 6.
Exactly. Drew, how would you feel of Lakers Rockets?
I got Lakers over Rockets in 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have Lakers in 6 over Warriors. So we both have OKC, or all three of us have Lakers OKC as our conference finals, which is probably the consensus pick and would be a really fun series. They had the 2-game stand down in OKC a few weeks ago that was very fun for Lakers fans until Luka got thrown out of the second game. Sean, what would you pick in that series?
I have Thunder in 7.
Okay.
And this is completely different than like the Rockets Warriors, where we said Warriors in 7. If it gets to game 7, you go with the Warriors. But the argument for the Warriors there was really, it wasn't even more about Steph and Jimmy. It was more about like the lack thereof for Houston. And like there are a lot of Shea detractors right now because of the media foul baiting thing, which I think is nonsense considering the other MVPs we've seen in recent years. And people love to say, well, the way Shea plays, it's not going to translate to the playoffs. He literally did this last year in the playoffs and like had an efficient 32 and was the only semblance of offense for OKC in the Mavs series. By the way, everybody loves to toss up the fact that they lost in the second round. They lost to the team that wins in the finals. So, I mean, okay, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I got OKC in 7. I honestly don't have rationale. I just think that OKC's been the best team all year, really. So I'm going OKC in 7. Although I think I can see it going either way.
Yeah. True.
I think OKC in 6. I think they just overwhelm the Lakers with depth, athleticism, reinforcements over the course of a series. Maybe this is where LeBron's 40 years on planet Earth take their toll, just the insane mileage. And And I just think Dagnall has so many different looks he can show the Lakers, and he has so many answers for the relatively few options JJ Redick can throw back. So I'm pretty comfortable the Thunder are making it to the finals.
Yeah, I'd also pick Thunder in six in that hypothetical series. If it got to a game seven, I think I would lean Lakers just because of the Luca and LeBron game seven experience that both of those guys have. It's sort of like a lot of people do the picking the home team in seven or the road team in six. For this is like the young team in six or the veteran team in seven. And yeah, agree on all counts with the athleticism. I think they can just sort of come in waves at the Lakers in ways that I'm not totally sure the Lakers will be able to counter. And those two games aside, down in OKC, which I do think have a lot of importance, I do think OKC in Lou Dort has one of the better equipped guys to defend Luca in the league, and I think Jalen Williams should athletically like be able to hang with LeBron as a secondary perimeter defender in a way that most teams around the league do not have two guys strong enough to check both of those guys. So between that, the bevy of options they can throw at Reeves, sorry, between Caruso, Case and Wallace, list goes on down the line. I just think the Thunder, as I said before, are a historically great team, and I'm picking them to make the finals. But Lakers absolutely can win that series, and if it gets to a game seven, as an OKC fan, I would be very afraid. All right. Let's go to the East, the far less interesting conference.
Boring. All right, yeah. Let's get through this. We don't need to keep Sean until the playoffs start, but yeah, let's burn through the East here.
I'm going to lump the Cavs and Celtics series together. Do you see either of those teams dropping more than a game, Sean?
No. Boston sweeps Orlando. Orlando can't shoot, and it's just a bad matchup for Paolo and Franz to go off in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel the same way.
And Miami, the culture isn't beating the Cavs. Sorry.
They have a shot.
I don't care how well.
Yeah. Miami could get a game. Atlanta, I don't know if Atlanta can get a game.
I don't think Atlanta could get a game. That's a bad matchup.
Yeah. Spoiler, those two teams are probably going to be in the conference finals in our hypothetical brackets.
Pacers,
right.
Bucks.
Hey. Oh, Pacers, Bucks. Yes, yes. Hey, you skipped Knicks, Pistons. But yeah, we'll go Pacers, Bucks
We'll
first.
get there. Tap me in, coach. Pacers, Bucks. Pacers in six. Even if Dame came back for game one, I think that would be my pick. Just look at the records versus top 10 teams. I feel like that's become cliche in this series now. Everyone knows Indiana 15-9 against top 10 teams in net rating. Milwaukee 5-19 against those same top 10 teams. Not the same top 10 teams, but also top 10 net rating teams. I just think at the end of the day, there's not enough offensive juice in Milwaukee to overcome their point of attack deficiencies on defense. Kuzma's 43, 31, 63 splits this year, with an even assist to turnover ratio. It's just such a big drop off from even the older version of Chris Middleton they had last year, who was able to do a lot of damage and obviously hit that crazy shot in Indiana to keep the Pacers in that series before it was over. I like having both Miles Turner and Siakam to bang with Giannis. It's kind of Indiana's version of what the Wolves had in Cat and Gobert to cope with Jokic last year. Still expect Giannis to be Giannis and go off in this series, but I just don't think he has enough help. And I have a question about Giannis, but first I want to hear how you guys see the series playing out.
I have Pacers in six, regardless of what Dame's situation is. This is going to be sneakily one of the three most fun series, though, because neither team can guard the other one.
Yeah.
There is nothing Indiana can physically do to stop Giannis. Giannis is going to average 32 to 35 points on ridiculous efficiency, get 12 to 15 rebounds as well. And there's nothing Indiana can do. Indiana's tried everything. They've tried doubling him. They've tried building a wall. They've tried a lot of different stuff at Giannis. And Indiana, I think they've been a sneaky good defense for the second half of the year, but they do not rotate on the back end well at all. So if Dame does get back, they go their empty corner stuff with Dame and Giannis, and they try to put two on the ball a lot or switch even. Giannis is just going to get a lot of easy points on top of the fact that they can't stop him downhill. But equally, there is nothing Milwaukee can do to guard Indiana with the pace they play with how goddamn good Tyrese Halliburton is, and how he's guaranteed to give you a shot attempt and an efficient shot attempt at that. I got Indiana in 6. I think it'll be somewhat more interesting if Dame comes back. But if anything, Dame coming back just means you have another guy that can't defend the point of attack that is demanded 35 to 40 minutes a night, depending on how truly healed up he is. Because who knows if he's even able to get all the way back to that type of in-game conditioning. I got Indiana in 6, but Giannis is going to go nuts. He's going to average, like I said, 35 probably. Halliburton's also going to go nuts and average 25 and 13 efficiently too. So it's going to be a really fun series.
There's going to be a lot of games that are 120 to 120 with 4 minutes left or 3 minutes left, and then just see who can get stops down the stretch. I making the pick thinking that Dame is coming back in either game 2 or game 3. I'm saying Bucks in 7. If he comes back later than that, I would lean Pacers in 6. But Giannis, it has definitely not been discussed enough how out of his mind Giannis has been playing over the last month or so, basically since Dame went out.
The whole year.
The whole year. He's averaging 30 on 60% shooting for the 3rd or 4th year in a row. He's 32, 12, and 12 in April. And specifically in matchups against Indiana, which the Bucks won 3 out of those 4 matchups this year. And even in the game they lost, Giannis was a plus 10. No, as you said, no one in Indy can stop Giannis. In the last 10 games he's played versus Indy, going back this year and last year, he's gone over 30 in 8 of those 10 games, including games of 37 twice, 54, and 64, and essentially making 2 out of every 3 of his shots. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he averages 40 in this series, especially if Dame misses a lot of it. But I think with Giannis playing out of his mind, I think he's gonna have a little bit of an extra gear to him. We haven't seen playoff Giannis really since that second round series against Boston a few years ago, where he damn near dragged that very undermanned Bucks team with no Chris Middleton to a victory over that Celtics team. Forced a game 7, and then Grant Williams hit a million threes and they lost. But I'm really excited to see Giannis back in the playoffs again. Maybe it's a sentimental pick of having him over the Pacers because my head definitely leans more Pacers, but I just think he's going to be able to find an extra gear. The rest of the Bucks have been shooting incredibly well. I think they've really found something with some of their bench pieces. For the love of God, please play AJ Green a lot because he's one of their 5 best players. He needs to be playing as much as possible. But I think with the sort of defense and shooting that they can put around, or more emphasis on the shooting than the defense. But the pieces,
what defense?
the pieces they can put around Giannis. I really wish they hadn't made that Middleton for Kuzma trade, but at least they can do a little bit of the Kuzma at the 4, Giannis at the 5, and go to that look a little bit. I feel bad picking against Giannis, knowing how easily he can score on this Pacers team. And it might be like a 2021 finals type of thing for him where he goes 40, 45, 38, 40 for the last 4 games of the series.
Well, Rick Carlisle doesn't care about your feelings. Andrew Nembhard is a playoff guy. We've seen it. And I think the Bucks are going to expend so much of their limited defensive resources trying to stop Halliburton, Siakam, the leading men in Indiana, that I wouldn't be surprised too if Ben Mathurin has a 30-point game in this series. This is his time to shine. He's finally healthy, and this team has a chance to make a mini run. I'm excited to watch him in his first playoff series.
I'm excited to watch him too, but
here's my question.
Yeah.
You're Giannis. You lose in 6 to Indiana. You're 30 years old and under contract until your player option in 2027. You've got this extremely physically taxing style of play. The left knee, which you had surgery on 2 years ago, has been a lingering issue for months. Are you just going to pray for a healthy Dame and the old Kuzma to show up and save this second apron team? Or do you ask out and give us the biggest Shams bomb since Luka to LA? Tell me this.
It's not that long
ago.
Sean, I say that's 3 months ago.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. You lose in 6 to Indiana. What are you doing as Giannis?
What am I doing? I'm probably asking out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because one of those two options doesn't exist, and that's Kuz. The
Yeah.
other one, it's Dame's awesome, but I just don't think they've been able to find a consistent blend of like their two play styles. It's always some sort of an awkward fit. So I'm personally asking out. And to a certain extent, if I'm Milwaukee, I would almost like allow that too, like just kind of hard reset the franchise even. Make sure you get a generational haul for Giannis and not what the team in Texas did. But yeah, I would probably ask out if I'm Giannis. Um, although you said 2027 player option, so what you have next season and then I can opt out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's also some value to just saying, look, I'm just gonna wait one more year and then just opt out and weigh my options and
Yeah.
bring back free agency. Damn it,
Yeah.
there's some value in that.
Yeah, and he's still getting better. Like he might not have a game, or I guess a few years ago, I feel like he would have been thought of as a guy who his game isn't going to age as well as like a Kevin Durant necessarily because of the lack of shooting touch, but he just gets better every year. Like his playmaking has gotten better, his mid-range jumper has gotten better, and he just seems like a guy who's going to work on new areas of his game and keep continuing to take care of his body in a way where I do trust him to still be good deep into his 30s. So I don't think he's at like wasting a season is going to like do horrors to his career trajectory. I think he can afford to wait a year, but he also just seems like the type of guy who wouldn't. I don't know. He's had a lot of chances to and hasn't, despite clearly applying some pressure behind the scenes and getting the Holiday and Dame Lillard trades done. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The Thanasis sweepstakes will be interesting to follow as his Achilles heals up. We'll see we'll see who decides to give Thanasis a multi-year contract.
yeah,
I'm not that worried about like 32, 33-year-old Giannis yet. I'm
yeah.
not that worried yet.
Yeah, that's fair. We've seen so much success from these guys deep into their 30s, and he's in supreme shape. All right, Knicks Pistons. Talk to me, Sean.
Knicks in 6. Um, I think Cade goes off. There's not really an option that I love for Detroit. I mean, sorry for the Knicks. Even if your argument is okay, we'll go OG on Cade. Cool. We're just gonna bring Cat into every screening action and just attack him and drop. If it's McHale, then it's that, and it's the fact that I think Cade will just give McHale a lot of trouble. I think McHale doesn't do a good job of guarding these bigger wings. I think that's kind of how Cade operates. And also, at the very least, if OG is not guarding Cade, then OG can at the very least try to impact some things in the passing lanes or as a weak side rim protector and helper. Whereas if he is guarding Cade, one, I still think Cade will just get his, and two, you're kind of limiting some of OG's other utility as a defensive player.
Yeah.
So I expect Cade to have a really good series. But that's kind of where it stops. I don't trust any of these other Pistons players offensively, especially like if the Knicks go double bigs, then I don't know how much Asar is going to really be effective offensively. And then also for the Knicks, like the Knicks just have too much offensive firepower. Even if the Knicks say, look, we're just going to try to outgun you and make this series in the 120s or whatever, or the 110s consistently. And then the Pistons counter is to that would be, okay, we're going to get easy on the floor, get more shooting. Okay, that's where that's where McHale get to cook offensively because their offensive games currently are predicated on mismatch hunting and be able to attack mismatches, and Beasley would be a mismatch for both McHale. That's how McHale had that 40-point Christmas Day games because he's just attacking mismatches all night. So I have Knicks in 6. They have too much offensive firepower. Cat, I think, could have a really good offensive series, even though I think he's going to get torched defensively and drop. But I have Knicks in 6. Cade's a hooper, though.
Yeah, I agree. Like the OG is most like game wrecky when you have him off the ball. Like he is a really good on the ball option, and we've seen him play really well against stars as an on the ball guy. But if you have him, they'll probably I don't know if they'll put Brunson on a Sar or maybe on whoever the Beasley or Hardaway, whoever the two is going to be. If you put OG on a Sar and just have him kind of roam and mess things up on the back line, jump passing lanes, all that. Like he can just be so destructive. And then you live with a combination of Hart and Bridges on the ball with Cade. Hart maybe has a little bit more strength to bother him. Bridges, you just hope his length can bother him a little bit, but as you said, he's at this point he's better on smaller guards and sort of keeping up with their quickness compared to these strong guys who can kind of bully him a little bit. But yeah, I've got Knicks in five. I'm sort of between 5 and 6, and all of these series I was between 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, and I decided to kind of go hard one way or the other. I think like if we're drafting the top six players in this series, probably five of them are Knicks. Like Cade or Brunson, number one, could kind of go either way. If I knew Brunson was fully healthy and recovered from his ankle sprain, I would go Brunson number one, but I can totally see the argument for Cade number one. Call it a wash. But then after that, like the third best player is probably Cat. OG is in there. McHale is in there. And maybe even Hart before you get to a Piston. I'm not sure. You can kind of take your pick, but when you have that degree of a talent advantage, with as feisty as the Pistons are, as scrappy as they are, I've been high on this Pistons team all year. They've been my Pistons since the beginning of the year. I had them as a play-in team before the year
Not
started.
anymore.
Not
You
anymore.
said five. Say
Yep.
goodbye to your children.
But they strike me as the team that's like really good regular season team. They win games through hustle, grit, toughness, trying a lot harder than a lot of other teams are trying in the regular season. But when you get to the playoffs, the lack of shot making and shot creation outside of Cade and Malik Beasley, I think, is going to be an issue. And then, yeah, I don't really trust Duran that much defensively in this series. Then do they lean more into beef stew? I think they probably will. I don't know. I think their lack of shooting between like Asar, Ron Holland, some of the other guys they rely on is really going to be exposed. And the Knicks are very good at like making sure the ball gets to the bad shooters and leaving them open. They've done that. We've seen that in the Philly series last year, the Cavs series the year before that. So with all that, I don't think it's going to be a huge Brunson series. I think, if Asar's on him, he's probably going to hold him to like modest efficiency. And honestly, if it turns into Brunson and a lot of ISO, I don't really like that for the Knicks. But it should be an opportunity for McHale, OG, Cat to be able to get theirs offensively and just kind of overwhelm the Pistons. So yeah, that's why I got Knicks in five.
Yeah, I got the New York Six. A lot of it for me is simply the 3-point math game. Like you just said, they're going to need to play a lot of Asar to make Jalen Brunson's life a little bit harder. The Pistons are essentially required to play at least two non-shooters at a time, sometimes three, because Ron Holland has played his way into the rotation in a real way and offers them a lot of defensive feistiness.
Also my guy.
Detroit will need Jalen Duran's scoring, I think, just to keep up with this high-powered Knicks offense. And Cat is just a nightmare matchup for Duran on the other end. I've said all year, like I love Isaiah Stewart. I think he's low key their most valuable big, at least right now. Obviously, the Duran tools, like long term, are very interesting. But maybe to stretch, I sort of think this is Lakers Wolves East in the sense that Cade is in the Ant slot, and despite this being Cade's first playoff series, I'm actually more scared of Cade's ability to hurt me out of traps and general defensive overloads than Ant. I think Cade is just that special a processor already. But I just don't think there's going to be enough efficiency once the ball leaves Cade's hands for the Pistons to outscore New York. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in this one, but I've seen some people picking the Pistons and I respect it. It's just too early in their progression for that.
Yeah. I think, you blitz Cade, you stay home on Beasley, you funnel the ball to Asar, Tobias Harris, Hardaway, Holland, and live with the result there. Sean, you mentioned the double big lineup. It's something that Knicks fans have been clamoring to see more of. And I think certainly if they get past this series and into a series against Boston, like I don't think the current starting lineup is it in a Boston series. We've just seen it's not good enough. So I think they're either going to have to make a deuce for either Hart or McHale swap or Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup to try to go with that double big look. And I'm very interested to see because Tibbs has kind of just put the five starters out there and run them into the ground all year. And I'm very curious to see how quickly he's willing to deviate away from that and be like, oh, we'll close with the two bigs or we'll close with Deuce in there over Hart, so we get the full like 5 out spacing look. Um, that big lineup really intrigues me, but it's just not something we've seen that much this year.
Which sucks because I do not like the double big look against Boston. I just don't think it works.
Yeah. If it was Hartenstein, maybe, but Mitch is just not mobile enough to be able to make that work. So I think Deuce is the answer there, but I mean not the answer, but the best answer.
If you're making a lineup shift, that would be it.
Yeah, that last Boston game where Cornette was just camping in the paint off of Josh Hart just made me. I love Josh Hart. He's one of my favorite Knicks of all time, but he can play 28 minutes a game. That's fine. He doesn't have to play all 48. So yeah. All right. Eastern bracket. I mean, do we all have Boston, Cleveland in the conference finals?
Boston, sorry to hate on your Knicks. Boston beats the Knicks in 5.
I
In a
I'm,
dominant 5.
I picked 5 as well.
Yeah. What are the Knicks are 6-16 against top 10 net rating teams. I think this is, the Boston is just the team that really hurts you for having Brunson as the head of the snake on defense and Cat as the tail of the snake, if you can say that. OG, Bridges at his best, Hart at his best can only cover so much on D for those guys.
Yeah. And then
Are we moving on to Cavs Pacers?
I was going to say, in that hypothetical Knicks Boston series, Tibbs is going to be coaching for his life in that game 5 because if it's a dominant 5, if they lose in the first round, he's definitely getting fired. If they lose, which is tough because he's honestly kind of like, it seems like before this year, so much of like the foundation and culture of the team was Tibbs. And honestly, it's better now to have it be a player as opposed to a coach. But if it's a dominant 5, I think that he still might get fired. If they get it to 6, I think you can look at it as like a successful season. Let's retool, add some bench options, and like see if we can get this team just like a little bit more competitive. I also have Boston in 5. Just like every game they've played this year has been over halfway through the first quarter. Like it doesn't look like a competition from the opening night of the season, and it's like been checkpoints all through the year, except for the last game they played. Which like honestly, I needed that as a fan to just see them be competitive. Like a lot of Knicks fans were saying, like, oh, don't like put too much stock in this game. Just like don't show anything for the playoffs. I was like, no, these guys need to. If they go in and get blown out again, that mental edge is just going to be so insanely large for Boston, and it's still insanely large. But those first 3 games, by the 4-minute mark of the first quarter, it was like a 20-point game, and they showed absolutely no ability to defend them. So Boston in 5 as well.
All right, Boston in 3 over the Knicks.
That's fair.
Sean, no, I would have 5 or 6, honestly, just out of respect for the vets in New York. Sean, are you entertaining Pacers over Cavs? Because I saw you.
That's like sneakily going to be one of the best series of the entire playoffs.
I agree.
That series is going to be so good. I have Cavs in 7.
Yeah.
I have Cavs in 7.
Same.
I think the Cavs have too much. Really, I think they just have too much positional versatility. Like I think they have a lot of different ways. Like they have the 2 big option with Jarrett and with Mobley. They can size down Mobley at the 5. They can go super wings and go like Okoro and DeAndre Hunter together. They just have a lot of options that I like. And I think Nembhard's really, really good defensively. I don't know if Nembhard he'll probably get the Darius Garland assignment. Donovan Mitchell's a really, really good playoff player. And I think Evan Mobley's ability as a legitimate mismatch hunter at this point in his career would give Indiana some trouble. While at the same time, I think Indiana is going to cause a lot of changes schematically for Cleveland. So I think this goes 7. Cleveland closes out and almost at the Q. What's it called now? I have no clue what their
The Link, maybe?
called.
The Rock. I think it's the Rock.
Ew.
Deep in the Rock.
That's disgusting. Oh, right. It's the Rocky Mortgage Arena. Now.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I have Cleveland in 7. Like I said, this is sneakily like one of the best series of the entire playoffs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I set my analytics team on a mission to go deep on that series. We're still sticking with Cavs in 7, but it's definitely a fun, subtle upset opportunity.
Yeah. I'd have Cavs in 6 over Milwaukee. If it is Indy, I think it's more likely to go 7. I like the way they match up with Cleveland better than the way Milwaukee matches up with them. And then I would have Boston over the Cavs in 6.
Yeah, I think I said 6 too.
6 or 7. I forget which one I picked, but I do think Boston wins that series.
All right. And then real quick, Thunder Celtics. It's the series that most people probably predicted before the season. I think if it's the series we get, it is going to be the best finals matchup that we've had since Cavs Warriors 2016. Um, I lean Thunder over the Celtics uh, in 6 or 7. I'm not sure which one, but I lean Thunder.
I lean Thunder in 7. That was my pick.
Damn it. I've got Thunder in 7, and it's just I literally switched this today. I just decided it's the combined probabilities of Celtics defending their title malaise that you sometimes see. Jason Tatum's 3-point shot going like it did in the Olympics. But I expect Tatum to be awesome. Drew Holiday's age, a Porzingis injury, Jaylen Brown's recent malaise that he's had individually. I just think there's enough uncertainty that I can see this being the Thunder's breakthrough. But I was Celtics until a couple hours ago. But
Yeah.
you know what? It's happening. And I hope it's a whiteout game 7.
Yeah, I put a lot of stock in those 2 games that OKC played against Boston this year too. Especially that second
No
one.
Chet in those games either, right?
They might have no, they had Chet in the second one, but no J Dub. And the first one I think was J
No
Dub, but
Chet.
no Chet. Yeah, uh, and just the way that Lou Dort just like got into Jaylen Brown and really like took him out of the game was insane. And despite Derek White, Drew Holiday, the Celtics just couldn't do anything with Shea. Yeah, I think it would be such an amazing series. Like I think we're due for an all-time great final series. The last few have just, except for the Warriors Celtics one, which still went 6 but in the last game wasn't that competitive. We haven't had like a really great competitive finals in a long time, and I think this year is the year we get it.
Yeah, I think the last really good finals is 21. 22 was solid.
Yeah,
Golden State Boston was a pretty decent series, but 21 Suns Bucks,
that was a good one.
and then before that, Warriors Raptors was actually a good series. We just look back on it with a bad taste in our mouth because of the KD and Clay injuries. And then yeah, like before that, it's really like 2016.
2019 conference finals was
Yeah,
also insane. What?
yeah, not for Blazers fans.
No.
Oh yeah, even that series was
yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like that was like one of the more fun sweeps ever.
Oh, I was gonna say when Max was talking about Tibbs coaching for his career, I was gonna say you guys should just try to suck, because when you're like the 10th or 11th best team in the league, your coach gets fired. But if you're Chauncey, you get a multi-year extension. So
There we go.
final question before we get out of here. To save the universe, are you guys taking a Celtics Thunder finals or any other 2 teams? Celtics versus someone else, Thunder versus someone else?
Probably just math. I'm probably going the field because
Yeah.
I think Cleveland can realistically like beat Boston. That's who would be out east, and then I think it's like not in out of the woods or whatever that OKC loses to like Denver if they make it, or the Clippers or the Lakers, or
Yeah.
even like the Warriors if the Warriors make it. I think there's more outcomes which the Thunder potentially lose, even though I'm picking them to win the title. There's more outcomes where like one of these 2 teams can lose to where I would still probably go the field.
Yeah, I think I go field too because or not easily, but I could see any of either of the LA teams or Denver making the finals. So yeah, I'd go field. It's not predetermined in the same way that it's been in years past.
I think I'm going like 55% field, 45% Celtics Thunder. I feel like that's the smart way to go. All right. Damn.
I'm not going to leave the couch all day Saturday. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Sean. Loved having you back on. And yeah, everyone check him out on Twitter. It's Sean_Davis without the S, right?
Yep.
All right. Sean_DAVI. Check him out on YouTube.
It's always a ton of fun, guys.
We'll be back soon, everybody. Peace.
Boris Dirk.